I was taking like multiple college classes while also being in high school, and I was just like, I dealt with anxiety, like I got it like really bad at that point in my life, and so I literally like kind of just crumbled and had like a midlife crisis, and it broke me down at like 15. And from there I started kind of asking myself, because my whole life I had been raised to just like, you know, just go to school, get good grades, and you know, you'll get a degree and make money, and that's what you got to do, right? So from there, I hit that point in my life where I kind of just asked myself, like, what makes me happy? And what am I passionate about? What is something that I would pay to do? I thought about those memories, and it brought me back to the theater experience. It brought me back to binging shows with my mom. It brought me back to just like storytelling, and that's what I realized I was most passionate about. And so when I was 16, I started posting about it on the internet, and it kind of snowballed from there, man. That was in 2018, and then in 2021, obviously, or in 2020, obviously the pandemic hit, and kind of like the amount of growth so many creators saw on social media, because people were turning to that, because there wasn't any like films coming out. It just like completely changed everything.
Was it, so it was just a snowballing? Wasn't like one video that really was like, oh shit, that really catapulted things?
Not really. I think it was just over time. It was like growth. Just getting at it every single day. And you know, when I first started, I was like fully in high school while also working 2 jobs. So my wiggle room to like make content was like from like 3 to 6 in the morning, and then 9 to midnight. But I loved it, and I loved doing this.
Did other kids in school like watch your? Was that a weird thing of like they were watching you and you were a somewhat public figure, but also a classmate and all that? Was that funny? Would they like bring up things that you said in the interview? You know what I mean? Like
for sure. Yeah. Like I got made fun of like for doing that stuff. But for me, like my passion for talking about movies and just bringing that energy, like that outweighed my need to like want to be accepted by other people that didn't feel the same way. And so like I was the kid that was made fun of, but you know, I just loved what I did. And I just stuck with that. And I believe we all got to stick with that. You know, we all have our things. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted to thank you for coming on the pod. We're just yapping, guys, but this is the Supes Show. We got our boy Dan Trachtenberg, who is coming out with Predator Badlands in theaters this weekend. Dan, thank you for coming on the pod and spending some time with us, brother. First of all, I want to give you your flowers, bro, because you actually had like your own movie podcast show back in the day, the Totally Rad Show, and you used to talk about movies on the internet, and now you have a freaking your 3rd Predator movie coming out, bro. 2nd of the year. So like, how are you feeling? And man, what was that journey of like talking about film online versus like now actually making those movies that people like me talk about?
I know. I think we have a very similar background in that like I really just love movies and comics and video games and love talking about them. And I think I actually became a much better director because I hosted a podcast and my co-hosts were actors. And what you know or have instinctually that people watching don't realize, it's one thing to feel a certain way about media. It's another thing to be able to articulate yourself about it and communicate in a way that connects with people. And because I was hosting with actors, I really grew as a communicator, especially about movies and the things that turn me on in them. And so when I eventually started directing, I was directing commercials at the same time, but when I started directing movies, I really think I was able to do what I did because I learned how to best communicate myself to an entire crew and the cast and all that. So the podcasting was as much of a part of shaping me into being a competent filmmaker as film school or actually just studying movies was. And yeah, man, it's really surreal and hard to like fully absorb. I had this incredible moment at Comic-Con earlier this year where we premiered some footage from Badlands. And Comic-Con, as a podcaster, I would go and wait all night in line to get into Hall H, dying to see awesome things, and dreamed secretly, like, what if I made something that would, put me up there, and there'd be people in the audience like me, and it felt like it took forever, but it didn't actually take all that long. Just and it was very, very emotional. Just really cool. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like you're literally one of us, because you actually are one of us.
I am. Technically speaking, I am one of you. Yeah.
When it came to, I guess, the Predator franchise, another thing too is that this film is actually coming to theaters.
Yeah.
Which I watched Prey, loved it. I watched Killer of Killers, loved it, and I was like, damn. It was kind of a little bit bittersweet because I loved it so much, and I was just like, damn, what I would give to see this on the big screen. Mm-hmm. But now with Badlands, we don't got to say that anymore, because it's actually coming to the big screen worldwide. Where kind of were you when you finally got that news that, hey, like your work on the previous two Predator films has paid off, and now you're getting the worldwide release, big screen, all of that stuff?
It really was right after Prey, and I think everyone felt it as Prey was coming out. I think the studio kind of knew right away, like this. It's a shame that this won't have the opportunity to be on the big screen. We had a screening actually at Comic-Con off-site, and it was one of the only theatrical moments for Prey, and it was an awesome, crowd-pleasing experience. And so I think right then they felt like we got to make another one and make something for the big screen. And Killer of Killers was sort of designed to be super hardcore and aggressive, and might fulfill the demands on streaming. But Badlands was always going to be a huge big screen experience. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with Badlands, one thing I want to bring up, because this has been a kind of a topic of conversation online amongst Predator fans, is that this film is the first PG-13 Predator movie. However, having seen the film last night, y'all aren't pulling any punches, bro. Limbs are getting chopped off. People are still dying in like the most brutal ways. You guys have some of the most like creative action sequences I've seen in like a big action blockbuster in a very long time. But I guess for you guys, I mean, how do you kind of like prioritize, still delivering that like kind of like ruthless, just Predator experience while also working under like the PG-13 rating?
Yeah, honestly, here's the thing. First of all, there was AVP that was the first AVP was PG-13, but the same muscles in my body that made the decisions in the R-rated Prey and the insanely R-rated Killer of Killers made all the same decisions. You're right. We did not pull any punches. There was no point where I was like, let's do this because we want to get a PG-13. Mm-hmm. It was just by simply because we had creatures with different colored blood and synthetic humans, robots, also with white milk blood and mechanical parts that were able to make a movie that is this gory and violent and have it be PG-13. And it's a thing that I wished as a kid that was dying to see. I mean, think about everyone growing up now. The only science fiction they have, and you probably that grew up watching, it was just Star Wars or Marvel or superhero movies. That's the only kind of way you have access to this type of action. And now people who would turn their nose at something for not being R-rated are going to see some insane action, and kids who've never had a chance would wish they could see something as crazy as this get to see it displayed on the biggest screen possible.
1000%. I was really shocked and taken off guard by how much like alien lore is integrated in this movie. You guys obviously have the synthetics, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation plays a huge role in this film, and it kind of feels like an Alien X Predator movie in its own respect without being an Alien X Predator movie. How fun was that to dive into that world and kind of fuse them together in the way you do in this?
Really fun. And I think part of what's made it feel so organic and not forced is because we didn't set out with the idea of like, let's take Alien and mix it with Predator again. Truly, the idea came from wanting to make this crazy movie where the monster, the Predator, is the protagonist. And I knew that if we had any humans in the movie, it would end up watering that premise down. So the next thought was like, oh, maybe it's like a story about a monster and a robot, and monster versus robots. And then that became, wait a second, I know a company that makes robots, and they are already touched this franchise before, and they happen to be owned by the same Walt Disney and 20th Century corporations, and means I'm allowed to play with it. So that's where all that came from, and I think some of us were sort of disappointed in the AVP movies feeling more like marketing gimmick and weren't really story focused, though have really cool bits, all of them. And I think every Predator movie in varying degrees has some stellar moments within them. And so, yeah, I just thought how cool it would be to like just take an element, instead of just grabbing the action figures and smashing them together, just take an element from one franchise and fusing it to another. So we don't really see that. And then from here, we can kind of just like let things cook and see what comes of it.
Yeah. Another thing that really caught me off guard was, man, this is an emotional story. Like, obviously, this is the first Predator film where you guys have, a Yautja as the protagonist, but the way you flesh out this character and turn this into a beautiful story about the most, like, just anti-empathetic creature in the entire galaxy, and see him on this journey of becoming more and more empathetic while facing off against the synthetics, who are also pretty unempathetic. But Thea, like, she's so great. Elle Fanning is so great in this movie. Oh my god. Well, I mean, what was the casting process like? Because you guys obviously got Demetrius as Deck. You got Bud. I don't know who played Bud because he's like a CGI creature, but he was a fantastic addition.
We had this guy Ravi on set. Who was awesome and really did inform quite a bit of Bud's character. Bud, design-wise, for me, I took a lot. I'm a big World of Warcraft player, and there's a creature called the Murloc, and that very much informed some of the early designs of Bud. But casting of Demetrius and Elle. I mean, first I want to say, you said something about like how the movie deals with like empathy or whatever, but with this monster, the real inspiration for that is like something like T2. Really? Like that. Nice. That is a hardcore badass action movie, but also has soul. And it'd be one thing if we did this crazy thing where we took the creature from any franchise. If you could make a movie about Chewbacca, but that's already a very warm character. So there was something even more exciting about taking this ferocious monster and saying, guess what? You're gonna feel emotional about it. It's still totally kick-ass. Just like it's cooler that it's a Terminator that's bonding with the teenager, and that one of the greatest lines in cinema history, "Hasta la vista, baby," is so badass, and it comes from a scene where a teenage boy is bonding with a robot. That's where that comes from. So all of that kind of thing very much fueled Badlands. And yeah, Demetrius, we were casting in New Zealand, and I think when we first started casting, I wasn't sure of our methodology yet for doing Deck, and we may have still been thinking we were going to be fully prosthetics, and so I was really looking at eyes, at actors with very expressive eyes, and Demetrius put himself on tape and gave a really awesome performance. And then we actually called him in to do an obstacle course, because physicality is so important in action movies, not just like physical ability, but actually the way one moves. When you think of how cool it is to see Tom Cruise run, there's a very specific way that Indiana Jones throws a punch, or John McClane versus a Jason Bourne deals with things. So physicality is something that I put on a very high standard for actors in an action movie. And so Demetrius came in and did an obstacle course along with other stuntmen. And the way that Demetrius traversed that was so badass, so cool, and really better than some of the stunt guys. So that's how we found our deck. And Elle, I think two things. One, I had fallen in love with her in Super 8, along with a lot of filmmakers, I think. Have you seen Super 8?
I haven't.
High recommend. There's a moment where it's a movie where kids are making movies with the Super 8 camera. And Elle is a young, probably tween aged, and she has to do she's acting in the movie as a teenager, when I don't know how you call it. And then she has to do a scene where she gets really emotional as the character she's playing in this like kids movie. And she does this stunning performance that's incredible. That makes all the other kids holding the camera like weep. And then she's back to being like but she also was a young actress playing it was like so layered, and made a lot of sense for a role like this where Elle would be playing two roles. And it was also watching The Great, where she was incredibly funny but also very intense, which once again just mapped right onto Thea and Tessa. And then there's just the idea of the luminous Elle Fanning strapped to the back of a predator just was too tantalizing to, it was incredible. Yeah.
Pairing, and that's like the part of the charm of their dynamic in the film is that you have her who's like the tool strapped on his back, and Deck is just like the physical beast who's gonna hold it down. He's gonna bring the action. He's gonna do his thing. And Demetrius does such a great job. I mean, just seeing his walk, man. It's hard to think like this is actually a dude in like a ton of prosthetics that probably weigh a lot, but he's still giving such a great performance without even saying any words. But he also says words because you guys developed a whole Yautja language for this. How did you even start to create a language like that?
From the ground up, I gotta tell you, this guy Britton Watkins, who's a linguist, and he took inspiration from, like, if you way back in '87, you could see runes that really were there to look cool. They didn't mean anything, and there was really no actual spoken language in any real substantial way. So Britain created a language whole cloth based on the physiology of the predator, taking into consideration its mandibles. It has something kind of like lips, but not really, and teeth that don't let the mouth actually close, and gave it semantic form and grammar rules, and it's now fully functioning. And Demetrius was tremendous at speaking. I can't say what my mouth shape will just not allow any utterance of any sound from Yautja, but yeah, it's badass, and it lends a real authenticity. So even though this is like a totally made up science fiction concept of a species, it feels as if they're actually some crazy archaeological find that we made. Yeah.
1000%. I mean, did you guys do such a great job at like just continuing to further develop the Yautja lore with this film? I think you guys just transformed all of it in a massive way with Killer of Killers. Like, you have the three singular stories, and then they all come together at the end, and that's kind of like the treat of it all. I think that's my favorite Predator movie, bro. Like,
awesome.
I love that film, and I love all those characters, because for years I had been saying, like, damn, I want to see a Predator film take place in like just completely different time periods, different settings, and that is exactly what that film is. And it takes like the 3 settings I've always wanted to see, which is like you have Japan, samurai, you have Vikings, and then obviously with Prey, you did like in the past with Native Americans, and then you also have the World War II setting as well. Killer of Killers obviously ends on a massive cliffhanger. You guys still developing the Grendel King as like the overarching king of like the Yautja. I know you have another Predator idea that you want to make and another film that you have in mind. Would that film involve any of those elements that you have set up specifically in Killer of Killers?
Yeah. What I love about what we've done so far is that each movie doesn't require any homework. And is its own cool idea for a movie. It's not just part 2, and it's really and hopefully works as a cool Predator movie, but also as just a cool piece of science fiction. But also, if you're paying attention, if you're watching all of them, there's little interwoven things that touch each other. And hopefully, should we make more, we wouldn't get ahead of ourselves and continue to be patient and make also at each film its own reason to be a movie, and could maybe further and further connect things. There are physical things from Killer of Killers that are now in Badlands, there was things from Prey that were in Killer of Killers. So, yeah.
With Prey, Killer of Killers, and now Badlands, I mean, dude, you've done such a great job of just like reviving the Predator franchise and giving fans just such a great future to look forward to, and just great films in between. I gotta be honest, as like a massive sci-fi fan, I watched this movie and I was like, what would a Dan Trachtenberg Star Wars movie look like? Because the visual style, the weapons, the action, you just took it to another level with this. So like, would you ever want to do a Star Wars movie? Is there like a story that calls to you in that world?
I've had interesting daydreams over the years of things that hadn't been done in that universe that could be cool. But at the same time, like I constantly think about, I think it's The Weekend. What was the moment that Steven Spielberg had with George Lucas? Was it after Close Encounters or something? They had this ritual. They would go to Hawaii on the release weekend of a movie. And Spielberg was saying how much he really wanted to direct a James Bond movie, but they wouldn't let him. They were only allowing British European filmmakers into the franchise. And George said, "Stop, Steven, don't worry about James Bond. I've got something much cooler." And it was in Indiana Jones. So I always think about that, and tried as best I could within the Predator franchise to make movies that I am been dying to make anyway. I got to make 3 or 4, if you consider the entire film in Killer of Killers, kick-ass movies in so many different genres. Long-winded answer is I've definitely had some thoughts, and maybe one day, but also I'm having a lot of fun kind of playing with my own sort of set of toys, and it's the thing that I think has made the Predator franchise so elastic is, on the one hand, even way back in 1987, the thing that blew my mind was that it was the first time I had seen a movie that started in one genre and then became something else. A crazy concoction of like Arnold military action and horror and science fiction. And we've been able to tell this more crazy concoctions of genre, but also that like the foe, the big figurehead of the franchise, the Predator, is something that is seeking the most worthy, which is just a great fulcrum, not just for like badass action, but also for really emotional storytelling that gets to be like thematically weighted. So I've been really enjoying myself in this part of the universe.
And we want to see more, man.
Yeah.
I mean, especially after Badlands, like there's still so much to. Well, actually, I don't even know, man. Because I feel like you've continuously just checked off all of the things we continuously like want to see in this Predator world, and now I know you have like another film that you have in mind, but like I don't even know what that would look like or like what that would be. So it's gonna be interesting to see what comes from that. But I guess when it comes to the previous work you've done, you know, one show that like has just absolutely blown up is The Boys. And you directed the pilot episode of The Boys, which is crazy looking back. One of the most insane openings to any show ever. Walk me through what that experience was like, and looking back on that scene where Robin gets ran through by A-Train. How iconic is that now?
It was an awesome experience. And like just great people working on it. Eric Kripke, who's the showrunner, and Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Also, just like fully embraced the insanity that you can get away with in a show like that. And a lot of times being a director on a TV show can feel a little claustrophobic or inhibiting, but they really embraced, you know, my instincts for stuff and really wanted me to kind of make a movie out of that first episode. And that scene was tricky to figure out because the obvious where Robin the inciting incident where Robin gets run through by A-Train, in the comics it was depicted in exactly as you would imagine like a car crashes were handled in TV shows, where like you're lulled into the mundane of the moment and then sudden slam of violence. And I really was trying to resist temptation and trying to figure out if there was a different way to tell that moment, and thought about just completely inverting it and have it play out in slow motion and to slowly come around and reveal her body coming apart while he doesn't even realize as he's still looking ahead. And it served as a pretty crazy technical challenge. We had to get this crazy bolt camera rig that can move a camera in the fraction of a second and also shoot super high frame rate. And while we're splashing Jack Quaid with blood, and you only get so many takes when you're throwing blood at somebody. So it was really hard. And I think the studio at one point, before all the VFX had been done, or the network was saying, just make it fast, you know. And Kripke was like standing up for the vision and being like, no, this can be beautiful. And I'm so glad he did, because I think it did make for a really like horrifying but also sort of poetic way to handle the real inciting incident of the series. That's still a moment that like everyone, like I still have friends that are like starting the show now and they get to that moment and then that's where they text, what the fuck did I just watch? Yeah.
Do you still keep up with The Boys like after all these years?
I watched season 2 and I watched all of season 1, the rest of season 1, and then season 2, and like loved it, out of my mind, texting Eric, and then I haven't been able to keep up. I keep up with the people, but just with all the hecticness of making everything, I haven't been able to watch the other seasons yet. But it's a delight that's sitting there waiting for me to watch. Yeah, for
sure. The final season's coming out next year, I think. So crazy. It's going to be crazy to see it come to an end. Yeah. Another show that you've been busy working on, Stranger Things.
So actually, I was supposed to direct the third episode of Stranger Things and was prepping it. And then Killer Killers and Badlands were greenlit at the same time. So I had to walk away. Sadly. Very, very, very sadly. So I'd done some previs work and stuff, but But there was just no way I could do 3 things. 2 things at the same time was already insane. However, what I will say is I was mixing Badlands at the very same time that the Duffers were mixing Stranger Things this last season. And they pulled me in to see a little bit of an episode, and I will tell you, I was blown away. The way that they did something was so brilliant, filmmaking wise, and really like stirring and emotional. I had goosebumps. I had read the scripts, and was like, "Oh, is this going to be the scene?" I wondering how you guys were going to do it. It was so good. People have a lot to look forward to, and I roped them in to a sound booth for us, and they now cameo in Badlands as the voice of Quay's ship, the ship's computer voice. You hear it a few times in the movie. And they were like, I was like, hey, how about you do, it'll be fun. You guys like can do a voice. And did not realize that I was going to have them speak Yautja. And that was hilarious. They were both like giving each other shit for their Yautja chops. And we combined both voices, and now they're like, there's only so many cast members in the movie, so like the Duffers are a part of the cast of Predator Badlands.
That is insane. I did not know that. That's a fantastic little behind the scenes story right there.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned it in an interview, because yesterday I was like trying to like look for it and keep my eye out, but you mentioned like there's like a Naru Easter egg in this film. Mm-hmm. Do you mind sharing specifically?
If you look, there's a couple Easter eggs, even to something from Killer of Killers, in the hologram of.
That's what I thought it was. Was it the girl with the bow and arrow?
Yeah.
You
didn't guess that's not it?
No, I guessed, but it's like we didn't see her face.
Right.
Like I saw it in the hologram, and I just assumed, but I didn't. I wanted to bring it up to you because I didn't know if that was actually supposed to be her.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, while making Killer of Killers, you were making both Killer of Killers and Badlands at the same time, which is just like so crazy to comprehend.
Yeah.
But like, what was there at any point where during Killer of Killers you were designing stuff that fed into the creative process that you carried over into Badlands?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. We in the end of Killer of Killers, there's this, like we called it the Zamboni, that came out to push the large creature, the backbiter, out, and that was the inspiration, not just for the design, but for the very idea for them to have in Badlands these like we call it the hover hog, and we just took the Zamboni part away from it and ended up building this ginormous. I'll probably post a video online soon of like me, and just to give scale and perspective. Huge bikes that came from the design in Killer of Killers, and there's some other Predators in Badlands that are adorned very similarly to some of the guards in Killer of Killers.
Yeah, that was because like I was thinking about that, and I noticed that the designs of some of the vehicles were like extremely similar.
Yep.
So I didn't know if you guys kind of like used Killer of Killers as kind of like a benchmark.
We used the very asset. We took that asset and brought it over, and then did more stuff to it.
That is awesome. Yeah. Another thing I noticed is that in the ship of Deck, or his brother Quay's ship, there's like a T-Rex, and I don't know. I saw that, and I was just like, damn, somewhere out there was a moment in time where a Predator fought a T-Rex, and that's like so cool. Do you have any like headcanon stories for like things like that have happened that, is there a story there that you have in your headcanon? Whether or not we ever see that come to light?
I have things like that in mind. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. Yeah.
And again, with Killer of Killers, something I don't think I've ever seen this before, but like Killer of Killers have come out, and you guys obviously end the film on like a massive cliffhanger showing Naru, and she's roped up in there. But months later, you guys added an additional post-credit scene where Touch is in there. Talk to me. I mean, have you talked to Arnold ever about coming back to this franchise in some capacity, and kind of like what went behind that decision to add that post-credit scene months after the film had originally came out?
That's actually how. So we had made the movie with Dutch and Harrigan in the end, and literally just the timing of things. The ink was not dry enough to include it when it came out. I had then the ink did dry, and I had a breakfast with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And then we were able to announce and show its inclusion at Comic-Con. So but yeah, Arnold is really excited about what we've been doing. He loved Prey, and he said it was kind of crazy because you'd think that the thing he hears the most yelled at him is "I'll be back," but he said actually it's "Get to the chopper." So he was stoked about the idea of doing more stuff in the Predator.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I hope we get to see it, and especially with you guys come together. We've kind of talked about so much today, but yesterday at the premiere, before the film had started, you gave like a really moving speech about kind of like the people that you've been able to like bring together that has helped you make all of these films, especially 2 films in 1 year. That's like an incredible accomplishment. Yeah. Over the years, I mean, how have you, I guess, surrounded yourself with the right team, with the right people that has allowed you like flourish with making these movies?
So there's this editor that I met on 10 Cloverfield Lane, my first movie. It was his first movie as well, Stefan Grube. He has an executive producer credit in Badlands. He's the voice of Quay as well, on top of being an editor. He is a real filmmaking collaborator, and I would not be making any of these as good as they've been without Stefan. And he was also similar in the same way a part of Killer of Killers. And our composer Sarah Schachner and Ben Wallfish, who did Killer of Killers, collaborated on this one and created a movie score that is unlike those you've heard before, but also has these grand sweeping traditional moments. And my DP Jeff Cutter, I've done everything with, and really I think the through line is, like, I was just thinking of Jeff isn't just like a good cinematographer, he's also sort of like a therapist for me, a story therapist, thinking about what we really want out of the movie, and brings the best ideas out of me. That's kind of what all these collaborations bring, is hopefully I'm bringing the best out of them, but they're also bringing the best out of me. So it's not just, this is the thing I will say about finding great collaborators, is it's not necessarily the most talented people. It's not necessarily the people with the coolest credits. If you had the greatest living cinematographer of all time, and you forced me to work with them, and we don't see eye to eye, and we see things different, like, the movie's not going to look good. It's not going to, we probably might not even get through the experience because we just creatively would be a mismatch. So much better to find someone that like can finish your sentences, and that you feel like when you're with them, you're firing on all cylinders and they're firing, and you, every time they pitch something, it sparkles, and that you want to be with, because you want to have a great time, because you spend a long time making things like this, and so I always try to prioritize good-hearted people, well-intended people on top of just talent.
Yeah, I feel like, you kind of hit it spot on. Like, it's not necessarily about like the biggest credits. It's also about chemistry. You know what I'm saying? It's about chemistry. It's about making sure like you're just enjoying your time on set, because you guys are working long hours, man. Like, I mean, how long have you guys now been doing both of these films?
Started 3 years ago. I mean, really as soon as Prey finished. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa. So
Right
you've been
after
in
Prey.
Predator world ever since like 2019?
Yeah. Yeah. Because Prey, I think I pitched 2017.
Wow.
Is when we first started, because we were doing it while they were shooting Shane Black 2018 The Predator. Is when we started writing Prey. So probably since, and then that movie came out and the Fox Disney merger happened. So we were kind of down and then we came back again. So I have been swimming in these waters. Oh my God. Yeah. Since 2017. That's pretty wild.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What? It's a hell of a journey though.
Yeah.
I feel like you'll appreciate this because you were like genuinely a fan of Predator before you ever came on to make those movies.
Yeah.
But one pitch that has just been circulating the internet over the years has been, because they're under the banner of like 20th Century Fox, has been an Ape-X Predator movie.
Oh my God.
We've got an Alien versus Predator, but like Ape-X Predator, and then you can title it Apex Predator.
Oh my God.
So
what won't the internet come up with?
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like that title alone, like you gotta make the movie just based off of that title. I don't know, how do you respond or how do you react to like kind of that like elevator pitch?
I think all that stuff is really cool. Marvel is doing so much now with Predator versus Black Panther, Predator versus Wolverine, you know? I think there's awesome there. The cooler thing to me would be finding a great story in that, so it isn't just like, well, who would win in that fight, and we see it unfold and go, oh, that's who would win. Like, it really needs something more thematic or emotional at its core to really be a great movie. I just treasure so much like the full meal experience when you find yourself with sweaty palms and super tense, and then you laugh and you may cry, and then you see some kick-ass crowd-pleasing act. Like, to me, that's what makes so often people describe a ride of a movie just as it relates to the action, and I do not think that a ride to me is up and down and left and right and all of that leaves you feeling exhausted when the movie's over. So that if there's a way to do Apex Predator in that way, and there very well could be, then maybe we'll do that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that title alone, man, Apex Predator.
That's pretty great.
Sick.
Yeah.
One thing you brought up in an interview recently, which I found extremely cool, was that while you guys were making Badlands, Deck was originally supposed to be blind, and he was inspired by like Daredevil. What was kind of like the creative process behind that decision, and at what point did you guys kind of like overturn that? Because I feel like now, having seen the film, it would have been really cool to kind of see like a blind Predator. It
would have been cool. It was the first instinct was we thought run to the litter, that he'd have some handicap that would make the clan want to just dispose of him, and thought about the great tradition of like the blind gunfighter, the blind samurai, the Book of Eli, not to spoil the movie, but a Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer, and even someone like Daredevil. For me, I really love linking the audience to the main character and have it feel more experiential, like the audience is experiencing the same sensations that the main character is in my filmmaking. So I was starting to visualize scenes and wanting to put them in the shoes of this character that would be blind. By the way, he would have developed this like special mask that would have used his clicks so instead of heat vision, it's almost like echolocation, just to play with the franchise tropes, which I thought would be fun. But that kind of filmmaking goes against what you would want to do when you're going to a new crazy planet for the first time and want to experience the insanity together with the protagonist. And so that's really what made me veer a different direction and just make it more about his like size and stature. Yeah. And
I feel like that's a part of the way we actually connect with Deck as a character, is just through his eyes. Like Dimitri is just He'll
There
just
was
give a
that
look.
too. There was that too of the
eye
kind of
acting.
performance. If he was portraying blind versus what he was able to do in the movie here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
When we look at, I guess, like your entire filmmaking career and the movies that you're going to continue to make, do you remember just like going back to day one and having a moment and just realizing like, hey, like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is what I love.
Yeah, I've had several moments like that. There's video of me 3 years old with my action figures and a bunch of kitchen appliances. And my mom says action, and I just go like this. And then I run and then I run away, and the camera cuts. And I remember what was going on. I had seen some like behind the scenes of Star Wars. And I think they were talking about like the sound design of the Millennium Falcon or lightsabers, where they used like the hum on the back of a refrigerator. And so to me, that was like, oh, I see how to make my action figures look like Star Wars. I need kitchen stuff. So that's why I was just doing that, and I thought magic would happen in the camera. But I remember when I ran back around and would like look in the viewfinder and hit play, and saw what we did not look like Star Wars. And that feeling of disappointment and the need to chase, like, how do I get what's up here out there? This very same set of emotions courses through me every time. So it's been a dream for a while. I think once I started to think about directing, I actually tried desperately in film school to find any other course of trajectory, just because there's really no clean way to becoming a director, and there's the other fields have much more of a ladder to climb. So I really tried to be just an editor or just a cinematographer, and but I just knew there are people that are particularly gifted at those things, and I was okay at them, and I know enough to communicate on those terms, but I can't really be awesome at that. And I had to sort of face, like, I think what I got to do is I got to just be a director and make things and make them as often as possible and sharpen my skills. And anyway, so that was the journey. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with directing specifically, it's like there's not necessarily like you can go to film school, obviously, but like you gotta like do it. You know what I'm saying? You gotta like that's like the best form of learning is like actually doing it and putting your head down and being vulnerable and working with scraps when you're first starting out, right?
The way I always put it, I took Kung Fu, Wing Chun when I was in high school, and our Sifu said the most impressionable thing to me. He said, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And the way that I interpreted that, hey, what he meant, it means like in soccer, like you can kick a ball lazily 1,000 times. You'll never get better at soccer. But if you put like a tiny piece of tape on your wall and you're 20 yards away and you try and hit that tape every time, like you're going to get better at your precision and kick, So in filmmaking, for me, if someone wants to be a filmmaker, the way I would say it would be like there's a whole portion of your time where you should be making as much as you possibly can with whatever you can. You need to get all your bad ideas out of the way. You want to get all your copying, all your trying to be like this other filmmaker, so you can find your voice and sharpen your instincts. And then there's going to be a point where you need to stop just making things and really focus and make something without any excuses, so that when you hit play or press whatever it is, there's no like, just so you guys know, I didn't have good sound, or like, just so you know, I know these are just my friends, but pretend they're like real actors. You make no excuses, and then you want to be making things like that as much as possible, and that's when you will start to really become, the artist, the best artist you could possibly be, the best filmmaker you could possibly be.
Yeah, it's like treating every single thing you do as like the best thing you're ever gonna do.
Right.
And then moving forward, and I always kind of think about stuff like that, and I think like with whatever I'm doing, I'm kind of just like, is this a thing I would be proud to do if I were to like die tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But well, dude, I think we're out of time for today. But thank you so much for hopping on the pod.
Awesome,
and,
dude.
You know, sharing your answers and your experience and everything, brother. Thank you for your work as well.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm a fan, and I love positivity on the internet. I think it's very important and necessary, and you're a big force of positivity. And thank you, man. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you, bro.
Awesome, dude.
Much love.
Thank you. Appreciate it.